Hello viewers, welcome back to the lab. This is going to be another Quantel episode because I've just picked up this new machine. So before we get started having a look at this, I just want to thank my patrons for all their support. You're awesome, thank you very much. If you want to become a patron, there is links in the video description. This episode of Dexter's Tech Lab has been brought to you with the support of PCBWay. PCBWay offer a massive range of PCB short-run prototyping and production services, from multi-layer PCBs, PCB assembly, literally every option you could possibly need. And they now offer manufacturing capabilities with CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, 3D printing and injection moulding. If you're interested in any of these services, there will be links in the video description. Go and check them out. I was tipped off about this machine by several people via various social media channels. This appeared on a commercial auction site, and several people suggested I might be interested in it. So I took a quick look, and yes, this is a Quantel V series crate. It's not actually a paint box. I'll go into that in just a minute. Now, I'd always avoided commercial auctions before because there's often a whole load of issues about buyer premiums and having to register and bid, and the auction mechanism tends to work slightly differently to eBay. So I've always avoided them in the past, but the last time I saw a Quantel V series crate come up for sale, it must have been about 3 years ago. So I saw this and went, yeah, I'm going to have to bid on it. So I got all set up, registered, put a minimum bid down, 10 quid, see what happens. Unfortunately, somebody was bidding against me, and I had to spend rather a bit of money to get this. But as I said, these don't come up very often. I was kind of like, I'm going to have to go for it. So I ended up spending about £475 on this. More than I've ever spent on any Quantel stuff before, so yeah. But we have it here in the lab. We can take a look at it, we can do a teardown on it, we can have a look at the discs that are in it to find out what's on it. So it should prove quite interesting to look at. The other really important aspect to this is I know what this machine is and what it's used for. I also know that this can be modified into a full Quantel paint box. So I believe this was purchased brand new from Quantel by S4C Television, which is a Welsh channel here in the United Kingdom. It was installed into a facility in Cardiff, and I believe it sat there ever since. So it was sat in its rack for about 20-something years. So this machine is actually called a picture box. That's slightly different to a paint box. Although the hardware is pretty much the same, all this is really is a still store and a still output device. So this would be used in a situation where you have lots of pictures and you want to display them sequentially on a TV program. You know, if you kind of think of the old school news programs where you'd have a presenter and then you'd have something displayed over their shoulder of the person they're talking about, or some kind of other graphic. This would have held and displayed those graphics. Now, because of that, it doesn't have many facilities. It really only can do a picture. It can size a picture, position it on the screen. You might have a transition, so you could fade out, fade it back in, that kind of thing. It doesn't really have a user interface on this. It was all operated by a sort of a keypad that would have been up in a control desk somewhere, and people would have just punched in numbers which would have represented the pictures. So they could have built up a list of 6 or 7 different pictures that would get displayed one after the other, and they would just then tell this machine to display the next picture. Interesting part about it is pretty much a Quantel paint box. Although it has all of that hardware in it to do all of the really cool paint box stuff, it is literally just limited by the software that's actually on the machine. So you can see here the front of the machine. We have the front cover, really nice to get that. Most of these go missing along the way, and you just end up left with the usual paint box look where there's nothing on the front. So it's nice to have that front cover. There's a couple of stickers on here, kind of interesting. On this side we have what looks like an S4C asset tag sticker. Next along is the auction number from when I was bidding on it, the main logo and stuff. We've got a sticker there that looks like it's been on there for a long time, 435, no idea what that means. Then there's a sticker here, it says still store 3. Interestingly, there was no evidence of still store 1 and 2. So where they have gone, I do not know. In this black area there, that's just a floppy disk. Interestingly, the floppy disk they used on these later machines is actually a SCSI floppy disk, so it's kind of interesting to have. Very likely that has probably never ever been used. So if I just unclip the front again, we've got the usual carbon filters that are actually just disintegrating. Yeah, so that is probably the original filter that's been in there. And quick look at the front, the system part number is 2094-01-018, serial number is C71349 mod 3. So yes, as you can see, really nice nice condition. Everything's all nice and shiny. Don't often see that on these old machines. They end up getting moved from pillar to post and getting dented, damaged, scratched and everything. It's really interesting to have one that hasn't been abused. Let's take a look at the rear panel. Very typical V-series crate. Power input, the RGB monitor for the user, Ethernet port, that will be 10100. We've got 4 serial ports, the SDI digital video inputs and outputs at the bottom there, various other video inputs and outputs. I'm not sure what is actually enabled on this. So yeah, interesting that we have the rubber bungs over some of the ports. These came from the factory by Quantel, so those have never been used. These ones have been removed, so yeah, those ones have definitely been used. That's the analog video outputs, but most likely all the video came out of the SDI. The reference input has had its bung taken off, so that they probably have had a master system clock which ran around the studio, so everything was synced together, so that's probably why that one's been removed. And just there we've got the usual SCSI terminator. Yeah, this, by the late 1990s, the SCSI ports were just not really being used anymore. If we have a look at the Quantel sticker here, we have manufacturing testing date of the 21st of the 7th, 1998. So if you ever end up coming across one of these machines and you want to know how to get inside one, there is a set of screws, 1, 2, 3, there makes up 6 in total. You need to take those out first to release the top. Then there's 3 large thumb screws on the back. Those need to be undone. The next step to get inside one, there's 2 tabs here which are there to put your fingers under. You lift it up and then pull it back. And that reveals a gap there. Now the next step is you get the tab here again, and there's a little notch here to get your finger under this one, and that will lift up, and then these little plastic pegs sort of snap out and allow you to open up the machine to get access to the cards. Now if you want to open it fully, there's another step. Grab the, lift it out and rotate it up into the stands. And there you go. So with the machine opened up fully, we can see the big power supply. That's a Weir unit. These power supplies extremely reliable. Unfortunately, we do have an IEC mains filter just in here. Yeah, these often suffer from the old reefer capacitors bursting into flame. So quite often you'll plug the mains into these and you'll just get all the magic smoke will come out and it'll stink. So I'll probably swap that out for a new one at some point. And I have taken an image of the 2 hard disks that are in here. I've not powered this machine up yet. I literally just took the hard disks out, made an image of them and put them back in. We've got more of the wiring loom underneath, the 2 hard disks. These are Fujitsu drives. Quantel tended to use Fujitsu drives quite exclusively, and those are, I think they were 4 GB each. So if we take a look at the main cards, in here we have the CPU card. So let's pop this one out, because you probably haven't seen many of this particular type. So this is the CPU 43 card. This particular version was introduced sort of mid-1990s. This is an upgrade over the original V-Series crate, because it has a 68040 Motorola CPU on it, and obviously you can see that it's massively upgraded over the older versions. We've now got SIMs for the memory. There's 64 megabytes on here. So that is that. It's all very, very clean. Just the slightest little layer of dust. It's hardly anything at all. Now there are 2 non-volatile RAMs on here, so it'll be interesting to see whether these are still functioning. You tend to find if a machine has been sat in a rack powered on for 20 years that these will be good, because it's only when the power is off that do these actually start using the battery. So there's a possibility that those are still good. So now that card is out the way, we can see the image processing card. Now obviously you'll see this and go, well, that looks a bit basic. That's because it is. This is a rotate card, so all this does is image rotation, and that'll be only 2D as well. So that is one of the limitations of the Picturebox. It doesn't have all of the funky perspective and 3D stuff that the full Paintbox can do. And we have the disk store. This is obviously quite a much newer card than we normally see in the Paintboxes. It's been slightly redesigned. It says disk store 1 meg SM. So there's normally a metal tag there, which with the name on now. DS is disk store. 1M, you might think that's 1 megabyte, but it's not. It's actually the density of the chips that they use. So that's they're 1 megabyte DRAMs that are used on here, and SM means it's the surface mount version. So this is the main store card, again sort of a more modern version of what we've seen before. So this card here is the video output. Now interestingly, in front of this card there would normally be the video input card, but that is not here. That was probably an option on the Picturebox, because this the stills that would have been put on this would probably have come over the network through the SnapCom board, which is this board here. I'll talk about that in just a moment. You wouldn't have needed the video input, so it's very likely that wouldn't have been installed in the first place. So it only has a video output card. Obviously, to turn it into a full Paintbox, we will probably add in a video input card. It's interesting that we are still using the STV 1601s by this period. I thought Quantel had moved away from these by this point, but yeah, they're definitely using them. And interestingly, somebody has swapped them out, one of them out. So obviously one of them went bad. It'd be interesting to pull that off. It's been placed in a socket there, so it'll be interesting to see who made that, whether it's a Quantel creation, I don't know. So that is the video output card. And finally, this card here, which is a bit buried by some of these SCSI cables. Let's just take that out so you can see it a bit better. That is the network card. So interestingly, this is actually a SCSI device itself. It talks to the main CPU over one of the SCSI channels, which then talks to its network drive. So everything's based on SCSI when it comes to the Quantel. So that is the SnapCom board. That is a complete 68,000 machine in itself. has its own operating system, its own non-volatile RAM, clock, everything. And that provides all the networking interface. Interestingly, normally this does actually have an FTP interface, and you can actually FTP in and copy files to and from. And it will actually do conversions as well, so you can upload a TIFF into this and it will convert it to its own internal format. And likewise, if you want to take an image off this, it can output it as a standard TIFF file. Right, so the best thing now is to get this reconnected, and I'm going to close the machine up and we'll power it on for the first time and we'll see what happens. Now, as I said, I've created a backup of the hard disks, so I know they're working, so there's no reason why it shouldn't boot, as long as those non-volatile RAM batteries are working, because these machines don't like them not working, so we will see. Right, so I've got this all plugged in, ready to go. I have set the boot switches on the Paintbox to not auto boot, the main drive, the system disk, and I have unplugged the shared disk, which is for the network card, so that won't boot either. So this should just boot up into the ROM monitors and not really do anything. So let's give it a go. There's my serial port. That's weird, that's running at 9600. It's normally 19,200. Well, that's the first oddity. So we have two versions of Picturebox on here, boot 1 and 2. So that probably means this has been upgraded at some point. So let's load in Picturebox version 2.1. So that looks pretty good. The time and date is actually correct. So that means the non-volatile RAM batteries are okay. Let's see, anything else? Oh yeah, why that is set to 9,600. It's normally 19,200. So we have the system volume. Let's see what is here. Not a lot. We've got dates from 2003, 2009. We do have a Type 300, which is a standard picture, so yeah, not a lot at all on the main disk. Now, this is something I kind of suspected, given that this doesn't have a video input card, and it means all of the images would have come over the network, which means all the images should be on the shared disk. Right, I have the serial port plugged into serial port B this time now, so that will be the Netcom board. I can't think of any reason why this won't boot, so I think we'll just turn it on and we should be good. So that's the ROM monitor, and it will just say device not ready until the drives are spun up, which are particularly noisy, I should say. Right, that looks like it booted okay. I'm just scrolling back through the log here just to see what we can see. Date and time are good-ish. But but yeah, the battery's obviously okay still. So let's go into file and see what files there are on this disk. Right, so we have a few more files than we had on the other drive, but really not a lot. So the Type 300, which is this number here, that a Type 300 is a picture which can be loaded and viewed. 302 is a cut out, I think, but it mostly looks like what we have on here is just pictures. Yeah, so there's not a huge amount on here at all. I was expecting hundreds or possibly thousands of files. So we're going to leave those there, and we're going to move on to how we upgrade this machine from a picture box into a paint box. Right, so before we get started on actually the process of converting this to a paint box, I just wanted to run through a few things that I thought might be important to say. Firstly, this machine it's rare, it's old. I don't want to modify it in any way that is not reversible. I don't mind modifying things so long as you can undo the modifications that you do. So all the steps that are going to happen in this are totally and utterly reversible. We'll be able to put this back to exactly how it came out of S4C's studios if we wanted to. So, for example, the disk images can be written back to the hard disks and restore those back to original. The hardware changes that I'm going to make, it's just swapping things out, so things can always be swapped back and put back to the way they were before. So I've got a few bits set up here. I've got a MO drive, which is going to give me access to the software. I've got the extra cards that we're going to be plugging in. They're around the back there. I will show you those in a moment. We probably won't need them to start off with. We should be able to get it up and running without swapping anything straight away. But we'll probably swap those in as a last thing just to bring it up to a full Paintbox Express level. So the things that we're going to need to do to actually convert this, I've got a little list of things that we're going to need to do, and I'll just run through them now. We have an issue with the Security PAL. For those that don't know, the Security PAL is a small IC. It's actually usually a GAL 20V8. Yeah, GAL 20V8. That is a programmable logic device. Quantel used these as a mechanism to store the serial number, some configuration bits, and a text string. And this was all encrypted in a weird sort of way into an actual logic device. Now we are going to have to create a new one of these because the Security PAL in this machine will be set to say it is a picture box. So the software, if I try and run a Paintbox software on it, it will just say this doesn't match the machine gender, as Quantel call it. So we'll need to write a new Security PAL. So we'll keep the serial number the same, which is 71349, but we will set the option bytes, so the machine gender is a Paintbox. There is also a text string which is stored in the Security PAL, and that's just it just says what the machine is. So if it's a Paintbox, it just says Paintbox. If it's a HAL, it just says HAL. So we'll take the opportunity to change that to Paintbox as well. So once we have generated the new Security PAL, we then need the software passwords for Paintbox 71349. So we'll be generating those with a small script that I have. Those will unlock the options for Paintbox Express. The next step will be to copy the software onto the system disk and make it bootable and reboot it and see what happens. Once we've done all that and we've verified the machine seems to be happy, then we'll install the expanded disk store, perspective and video input cards. So if we have a quick look at the cards that we will eventually hopefully be installing, we have this perspective card Like the size card that I showed you out of this particular machine, there's obviously a lot more on this because it can do perspective and sort of a pseudo 3D manipulation of cutouts and bitmaps and things like that. Interesting, this is the one that actually came out of my picture box before I converted it and added the image card. So that will be going in. The other one I have here is the expanded disk store card. So this is one of the ones that I picked up when I went to Effect Systems and bought as much as stock I could from them. This is a new old stock board. It is open, but it is actually, it's been in here, can't come out until I break this bag entirely. So that is brand new. So that should be working just fine. Right, so first thing we're going to do is generate a new security pal. So this has been condensed into a small Windows command line utility. So I can just do qsecpal, and we want the serial number, which is 71349. The group serial number is 7711349. The string is Paintbox, and the option bytes are all 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We run that, and that generates us an encrypted string, but what we need to do is convert that so it can actually be programmed into a GAL20 V8 PLD. So what this has done is generated two files for us: out.bin, which is just a binary equivalent of what the Paintbox sees when it tries to read that chip, and out.pld is the actual data that we're going to need to convert. So we're going to use an old program called WinCUPL, and we'll load in the PLD file, and then from there we can actually compile it. Yeah, that's compiled properly. So that has generated some more files for us, which is this JED file, and that's the file that I can write to the actual device. So I'm just using my trusty Mini Pro, my TL866, to program this. So let's just load in the JED file. There's the serial number 71349. I program that. Erase. Program, and we're done. Okay, now we've done that, we can generate the actual passwords. So it's a very, very similar process, but this is a Python script this time. So qpassgen.py, serial number, which is 71349, the option number, which is 13063, and then none. The none is just a date. You can actually put a date in there and have them expire after a certain date. So once we've got that in there, we just run it and we get our password. So what I need to do is just go through the 4 passwords that we need. There we go, that's the 4 passwords generated. So let's head back over to the picture box and we'll actually start the conversion process. Okay, so we've got the CPU card back out, so we're going to swap over the security pal, which is this device just here. Swap in the new one that I've just generated. So if we just wait for the drive to spin up, and do index, come on drive, there we are. So we're going to do load 1, and we'll run the software. Now this is where it'll probably complain a little bit. Okay, so it's picked up, it is now a Paintbox. Some other errors to pop up, I would have thought. It's obviously unhappy about something with the SCSI, but we will ignore that for the moment. But yeah, we've got invalid serial number, options or password, cannot go any further. and no passwords on volume. So yeah, that's all kind of how I expected it to go. No passwords. So let's go into Filer. Right, so drive SCSI #13, that is the MO drive. It says it's unmounted, which is to be expected. So let's put my MO drive in, disk I should say. Because it knows about the drive, it should auto mount that, so it should just pop up a little message shortly to say it's been mounted. There we go. So volumes. So we now have my software archive. So if we do flist #13, we should get a list of files on my MO drive. So on here we should be looking for version 2 Paintbox. 212 Paintbox, that's the one. So that is file number 26.2. So what we need to do is copy #13, so it's drive 13, it's file 20, what did I say it was? Go away, I don't know what that is. 26.2. So copy #13.26.2 to drive 0. Don't know what all these error messages are. Did it copy it? That's all I want to know. .212 Paintbox, yeah. File number 202.4. I don't know what these errors are. I wonder whether my drive is unterminated. That might be what that is. So if we go into util, we need to set the file to be bootable now. So boot list. Oh, so let's do that again. Go away with these stupid SCSI messages. Let's try ejecting the disk and see if that makes any difference. Boot. No, it's boot 0. Assign boot number 3 to be #0.202.4. Oh, this is painful. There we go. So, time to power off. I'm sure it's my MO drive that's causing those, but I suspect it's probably because it's unterminated. So now we've got the Paintbox option, so we can do 3L. So it still won't boot fully, but it should be a lot happier. That was a bit odd. The first time I tried to reboot, the software crashed. Very interesting. But the second time, it worked fine. Weird. Okay, but we're in. So let's try adding in the passwords. Tell you one thing we will do as well. Let's try clearing the non-volatile RAM, because that can sometimes also cause a problem. So clear $43 Now we'll crash the software, exit out to the monitor. Why is the baud rate just suddenly changed back? Oh, it's probably because I've set the... Oh, actually no, it's defaulted to 19,200 again. Excellent. So that was probably set in the non-volatile RAM then. So if we do 3L, this time okay, that seems fine. So what happens if we run the main software? System ready for use. Wow! Right, next step is, of course, to have a look at the video output and see what is actually coming out on the screen. Plug in my tablet and keyboard and see what it does. So I'm just plugging in SDI into one of the outputs and there we go! Paintbox. Right, I just need to put my tablet and keyboard in. I think I'll probably reconfigure this so I can get it over into my capture so you can see it properly. Okay, this looks pretty good. Tablet works. Quantel Paintbox version 212, serial number 71349, excellent. There's no shared disk showing up, I'm not sure why that is. I can check that in a moment. Oh, looks like it's having to reload stuff into the stores, so probably upgrading to that larger disk store is what we need. Let's see what options we have in here. Probably not many. Yeah, so we only have flip, tumble, rotate by 90, very, very basic stuff. Once we put the perspective in, should be a lot better. There's no animation option, that's fair enough. Library, oh, let's have a look at those pictures. So, first time seeing an old picture, this is from 2011. This would have been made for PAL Plus, which is why it looks a bit stretched. So we're viewing it on a regular 4x3. So, no. It's just a "we've broken something" message. Looks like another one. We apologise for the technical fault. From S4C. Our Freeview retune message, yeah, we always saw lots of those. That looks like some kind of grab from a frame. I don't know what that's from. We have another one. It's just a duplicate. And that's a duplicate as well. So let's power all this off and swap those cards out and hopefully it'll carry on working and we'll get some extra options. Right, all the cards are in. I've also set this to auto boot, so when I turn this on now, it should boot up on its own. All looks fine. We now have an 8 meg disc still fitted, excellent. And we should see somewhere about a purse card fitted, excellent. Still seeing, I think there's something not quite configured right on the network card. And that's why I'm getting these errors. I'll have to look into that in the future, but so yeah, we don't get the reloading when we swap between those two menus. Oh, we've actually got transform effects. That's been enabled since. I don't think I saw that last time. Paste up. We now have the 3D option. Excellent. So we can now do size and spin. It's not quite as fast as the old image card that I've got on my other paint box, but it's without being able to find another image card to go in, it's about as good as it's going to get. So let's see if we can load in those other images that were on the shared disk. Yeah, not many, is there? 10. It's going to be all the same pictures, isn't it? Yeah, more technical fault things. Oh, there's another slight different one. Christmas 2011. Yeah, it's just title cards and stuff, isn't it? Bit of a shame there was nothing interesting to actually see on here, but that's just the way it goes sometimes, isn't it? What were these created? September 2011. So that was probably roughly when it was last used, I would imagine. Oh, we've got the custom filters though, that's nice. Those will probably need copying over. These are convolution filters, so you can define your own. I think, yeah, so you can actually do your own convolution filter if you wanted to. So that's another feature that you get on Paintbox Express. The other ones are custom brushes. There won't be any on here. Yeah, reverse it. Now we do edit, new, cut out. There we go, so we can actually turn that into a brush. And paint with it. So here we are, we have another successful conversion of a Quantel Picturebox into a paint box. Really pleased this has worked out. It means there is another Quantel paint box in the world, because there's not really enough. So there's still a few things to do with this machine. Firstly, there's the non-volatile RAM. Although it's working in this machine at the moment, it is still 20 odd years old, so it will need replacing. So that is going to be one task for the future. There is the issue of the hard disks. They are incredibly noisy, so I'd be a bit dubious about leaving those in long term. So given that there's two of them, that's another 2 SCSI to SD cards that need to go into this. So there's even more things to spend money on. But that would make it, it would certainly make it quieter, and it would certainly make it a bit more reliable, because we wouldn't be relying on those spinning discs of rust. The network card probably needs to be fettled with a little bit, just to make sure it's all configured properly. But that should be a pretty easy task. And I'll need to install a video input card. That should be relatively simple. It should be just a case of finding one out of my collection, slotting it in, and it should just work. Fingers crossed. Now, in terms of the tablet and keyboard and all that sort of stuff, I have a spare one. That's no problem. We have here what will end up being a complete Quantel Paintbox Express, fully operational and ready to go. Which raises the next interesting question. What do we do with this machine? In reality, this machine has been paid for by my patrons. If they weren't supporting the channel, I wouldn't have been able to go off and spend the close to £500 to buy this. Obviously, the conversion itself isn't really costing anything, but there's still. But I still need to swap over the non-volatile RAM, and there's the SCSI to SD cards as well. So that's more expensive. I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford to do that without their support. So I feel disinclined to keep this for myself. I think it should go out further afield, but exactly how do we do that? So there's a couple of options that sort of spring to mind. I could put it up on eBay, start it at £1, let people bid away on it and see where it goes. Whatever we get back can go back into the channel, and we can save some more Quantel stuff in the future. And it also gets a working paint box out to another person to enjoy it. The other option could be to just donate this to a museum. A museum can actually set up an exhibit and actually have a working Quantel paint box. I think that'd be quite cool because as far as I know, there is no Quantel paint boxes in museums, which is a bit of a tragedy given how special I believe they are. I think there's a growing recognition now that these are quite cool machines, and they need a little bit more recognition. So getting it into a museum, I think, would be an excellent thing to do. Now, if you've got any other bright ideas on what we could do with this machine as an alternative, then please leave them in the comments. I would be very, very interested to know. I'll finish up by saying thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel and the cause. You're all awesome. Thank you for everybody watching and liking, subscribing, all the comments and all that sort of stuff. Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.